right, so I'm joining Chris Grum today with Premier Custom Travel, the CEO, the owner, and we would call him the king, but we know Buttons the cat, who is also going to make an appearance at some point, really is the king of Premier Custom Travel. So how are you today, Chris?
I'm good. How are you, Jeremy?
Oh, doing well. Chris, we've known each other for quite a while now, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I'm trying to count back, and I'm not sure I can. So
Yeah,
you tell me how many years.
I don't know. We've made a pretty big investment into Premier Custom Travel, as my wife and I love to cruise, and there for a while we were even hitting a couple of years. So we're thankful to have you. You've created a lot of memories for our family, and I know many more to come. And I'm glad that you're taking the time out of your schedule to be able to learn a little bit more about your business and just small business in general. And that's why I do these interviews. So Chris,
I think they're really helpful, Jeremy. I think it's nice to see different small business owners' perspectives on things. I've seen some of the others you've done. And first of all, the quality of your broadcast is impressive to me. And we try to do this type of stuff. And I'm going to have to get a few hints from you on how to do all these things. But it's really nice to see different perspectives because I go to a training event every year that's part of the cruise industry. And a lot of the classes we take are kind of rudimentary, but there's always something you take away from it that maybe an angle you didn't consider. And so I think these types of things are great for maybe even rudimentary stuff because we all look at things differently and have a different way of approaching things and can learn from each other.
Yeah, it's not always about learning the newest, greatest, shiniest thing. It's about some of those things that are the tried and true everyday things that make us successful in businesses. And it's just like you said, having that different perspective, maybe thinking differently about how to approach something. So
sure.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. So Chris, share a little bit about your history. We don't have to go all the way back to when Chris Grum was born. Share a little
Nobody
bit.
wants that.
No, we don't want to envision that either. So go back though, and I know you've had some time in radio and share some of those experiences.
Well, native Texan, but I bounced all over the country basically, and part of that was the radio business. Throughout my radio career, which started when I was in high school, I worked in East Texas, Houston for the most part, Boston, Pennsylvania, Las Vegas, so I kind of bounced around. The majority of that time was on the air, and I played every kind of music you can imagine. I mean, literally from elevator music to death metal, so and everything in between. But the last about 10 to 12 years of my radio career were at KIKK and KILT here in Houston. And I spent the last about decade with the Hudson and Harrigan show, which a lot of people that have been in Houston for a while might remember as a morning show on KILT. Mm-hmm. But when I was in the radio business, and I guess during that time, one of the things that I'm kind of really proud of, and you can kind of see it hanging, I have to get my bearings as to which way I'm pointing here. But behind me over here is an Aeros jersey. I got to do 8 seasons of announcing for the Houston Aeros, the in-arena public address announcer, and hosted the intermissions as well. That was so much fun.
Why did they get rid of the Aeros? That was such a great team.
You know, there's a lot of theories as to why they got rid of them, and we could probably spend a whole webinar talking about that. But the short answer is they were owned by the Minnesota Wild. Originally, they were locally owned. Then they got picked up by one of the hockey teams in the NHL, and they were using them basically as a farm team. And, you know, you've got Minnesota and Texas, not exactly an easy commute. Right. And just somebody that's never seen a hockey game in their life would go, well, why wouldn't you be the affiliate of the Dallas team? Because they're right there. And so they eventually picked up the team and moved them to Iowa because apparently Iowa's better than Texas as far as hockey goes. Who knew? So there's been rumblings that we might get the AHL back here again, and there's been rumblings we might get the NHL. I'd sure love to see hockey in any form. But it was a lot of fun getting to work with that. And it was funny because the hockey players love Houston. They're all from, you know, Alberta and Manitoba where it's 40 below zero in December, and they can play golf here in December. So they love this place.
Yeah, it's a shame to see them go, and hopefully they do have plans to bring them back. So you're with Hudson Harrigan, you're doing the radio.
Yeah.
And then what's the big transition there? What happened from going to radio to travel?
You know, it's kind of funny how it happened. At the time, and this is going back I guess starting about 15 years ago. At the time I was married, and my wife at the time and I were in a unique position that we had money to invest in a business and we wanted to open our own business, but we didn't have the idea. And usually it's the other way around. You have all these entrepreneurs that have all these great ideas and can't find funding. And we looked, I mean, at everything under the sun. We looked at McDonald's franchise and Chick-fil-A and, every restaurant. We looked at franchises beyond the restaurant business. We looked at all sorts of different ideas, but every time we looked at something, there was a big red flag that came up. And for example, the restaurant business, the easiest red flag was, we've never done it before. And
Sure.
you're going to put a lot of money into overhead opening any kind of restaurant, and that's a big risk. And then I've heard statistics that it's a big number of restaurants that fail. So it was, okay, do we really want to do that? And so we spent years looking for something to put together as a company. And one day, I had a meeting with Scott McAllister, who who works with me with Premier Custom Travel and and also is a real estate agent. And Scott and I had a meeting about something else, but Scott had been kind of brainstorming ideas for our business, and I had been, and we went to sit down at Baker Street down the street, and I said, I've got an idea for the business. And he said, hold on, I have an idea for the business. And we both said travel at the same time. And the way that came about, the short version of the story, which we may have already passed that point here, but the short version of how that came about was, I was lucky enough, my dad worked for Time Incorporated in various capacities, but Fortune magazine for a while, Time magazine for a while, and he traveled all over the world. And I was fortunate enough to get to go on a lot of these trips, and the trips I didn't go on, I got to hear about firsthand. So I had a love for travel from when I was this big. And I was at one point this big, so don't you say anything. It was this big that was the problem. And so that was a logical thing, was people would call me and say, hey, I'm going to New York City, or I'm going to go to London. Where should I go? What should I do? And Scott and I both realized, why not try to monetize that? And it's something you're already kind of doing. Plus, you can do it from home. And if you fail, the overhead is virtually pretty low. And so that's kind of how the transition began. And honestly, we had a whole other idea of how we were going to do this business and how things were going to work. And then we opened our doors, and we had cruise customers and Disney customers coming. And we said, well, if that's what the customers want, that's where we're going to go. And here we are a decade later, and it's been an amazing run so far. And I'm looking forward to what's next.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you picked travel, Chris. And I just have to ask the question that intrigues me, is that, you had travel agents, and then you had Expedia.com, Hotel.com. You had all these other things come into the business that wiped out the majority of the industry. What made you just say, you know what, we're going to kind of buck the trend, and we're going to go out and do this because we love it?
That's a great question. And it's actually something we get asked a lot. Are travel agents dead? Is the business declining? And it's actually the exact opposite. But when we started the business, and the moment we sat down and both said travel, we quite literally spent the rest of that day brainstorming names for the company and ideas and how we were going to make things work. Now, at the time, we had no idea how the industry worked. So it was, okay, we don't know anything about it, but here's how we would approach it. And originally what we were going to do is create itineraries from scratch. So for example, if you wanted to go to New York City and you wanted to see a Broadway show and you wanted to eat at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant and you wanted to stay at a 5-star hotel, we were going to do all that. And we didn't even know you could get paid by the suppliers to sell their product. So we were just going to charge a concierge fee, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going to be, Jeremy and his family wants to go to New York. Okay, tickets to Wicked are $300 a pop. We'll charge you $350. Mm-hmm. The idea behind it was we would work with the wealthier clients that will pay somebody to plan that for them. Sure. And that was what we were going to do. And then our very first customer booked a Norwegian cruise. And our next customer wanted to go to Walt Disney World. And our next customer wanted a European tour. And we said, well, wait a minute. We can do these and get paid for them and not have to charge somebody fees. Well, that's a lot easier, and it's a smarter business model. And so it kind of evolved from, we came up with the idea in August. We opened our doors the following January, and through that time, we learned an awful lot about how to do it. But the other answer to that question about why we can compete against Expedias and the Travelocities is that, and we heard this the first time we went to a travel convention, to a website, you're just data. And it's so true, because Expedia may be a place where you can search every airline instead of having to go to them individually. And you may be able to see a bunch of hotels. And Trivago claims, we can search all the hotels for you, which really isn't true. But, sure, okay, we can believe it's most of them. But they don't care about you. They don't know about your preferences. And the hotel that's good for me may not be good for you. And the hotel that's good for you when you're traveling with Lori by yourself might be different than when you're bringing the kids along. There's a lot of factors that come into play. And so, if you can offer a service to customers, you can beat the websites any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I coach a lot of people in the real estate industry, and I see this as well, as there's all these outside players, lots of money being dumped into the industry to essentially try to replace the agent. And I truly don't believe that's ever going to happen. And I don't think it's ever going to happen in your industry either, because it's a relationship business. And like you had mentioned, you are a data set when you're using those other companies, and they don't have those unique understandings of the particular need of the client. So I think it really comes down to relationship, don't you?
I totally agree with that. But I also think that as far as the internet will never take over the travel business or the real estate business or any of the others, I think that is up to us. It's not up to the internet. It's up to us as agents and as representatives of our business. Because if we are and I'll back up just a little bit. Excuse me. I put up a post yesterday on Facebook on my personal page praising two different people that I dealt with. One of them was at my internet provider, and another one was at a restaurant here in Sugar Land Town Square. And the reason I did that is, you see, and I'm guilty of it as much as anybody else, people griping about bad service or bad this or bad that on Facebook. And certainly that's a good way to get a company's attention. But I don't see a lot of, this person did well, or here's a good thing that happened. And to me, as a travel agent or a travel advisor or whatever you want to call me, it's my job to make sure the internet doesn't take over. And if a customer can go to the internet and book a cruise, or they can come to me and they get absolutely no benefit, then the internet's going to win. But as long as I bring some benefit to the table and knowledge to the table and customization to the table, then we'll beat them every day. And in real estate, I can't imagine is any different. But I think it's our battle to lose, and hopefully we don't by not providing a service.
Yeah, and that, bringing up that, I saw the other day you'd posted something about you were having lunch or something with somebody, and there were travel agents with other companies, and they didn't realize that the boat they were talking about hadn't been in Galveston for years.
Yeah.
And so I would guess, it's just like in your industry as in any other industries, there's going to be some that lay down and tech wins, and there's going to be those that stand up against it. And I see your company is one of those that have really made the concerted effort to provide that customer service, because it's relationship based and doing your job well.
One of the big battles that we've been facing recently in the travel business, and certainly in the cruise business, and to drill it down even more specifically, is the attempt by MLMs, multi-level marketing companies, to come in and try to take over the industry. And I don't want to throw that whole segment under the bus, so to speak, because certainly there are some MLM agents out there that do a good job and really know what they're doing. But the business model in and of itself is how many people can you recruit into the business, not how many cruises you can sell. And Scott and I were just at a cruise convention back in April, and one of the major MLMs was represented very heavily there. And the entire convention had a different feel to it than it had in years past, because it was not about how we as agents can help each other grow and make the industry better. It was about, can I recruit you, and how many people can I pull into my circle? And unfortunately, when you're focusing on that side, you're not focusing on the cruise sales, and the customers left out. And so that's something we've been fighting a lot recently, and hopefully those will solve themselves, but it is an ongoing battle.
What is your big why? What makes you get up every day and say, I'm going to go in the office and I want to make the experience of those that choose to use us, I want to make their dreams come true. What's that big why?
I think it's a couple of things, actually. The first one is I love what I do. And it's kind of funny, because in the radio business, I had it as easy as you could get in one sense. I worked 5 days a week. Now, I had to get up early in the morning for a morning show, but we worked 4 or 5 hours a day on average. Rarely worked weekends, rarely worked holidays. It was a really pretty easy job. with this job, as you know, it travels with me. If I go on vacation, the computer goes with me. If I need to work at night, which is when a lot of people are free to book travel, it happens. I'm working 10 times the hours I worked before, but I don't mind it at all. And I just really enjoy what I do. So that's one why. Another one is this industry and what I do affects a lot of people. Take yourself, for example. You mentioned at the beginning of this chat, the lifelong memories you've created. There is nothing better than somebody getting back from a trip and telling you about what they did and you know, telling you, like you just said, lifelong memories. I have two photos that stick out in my mind that are great examples, and I'll never forget them, but great examples of just that moment where you went, this is why I do it. I sent a family to Alaska this past summer, which I know you've done. Mm-hmm. And they were very hesitant. It was a father and son, a father and mother, and the son was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and they were very hesitant. Would he enjoy it? They had never been on a cruise before. They had never been out of Texas, I don't think, before. But they were very, very hesitant. We went through and talked through everything. I got a photo one day from him, and it was a picture of he and his wife standing in front of the Hubbard Glacier, and just the smiles were so big. That made my entire month. And then I had another Disney client that sent me a photo one night, and it was a picture of from behind of his, I guess, 8 or 9 year old daughter looking up at Cinderella Castle on Main Street at Walt Disney World. And he took it from behind her, and she's looking up and all in awe. And all he put in the text was "Proud Papa." Yeah. That's all you need to say. And that's and then there's one other that I will mention real briefly, and that's the charities we work with. And this is something we just started, and I'm really excited about. We met a charity last year at Cruise 360 called, which is the cruise convention, called Mercy Ships. And they are a hospital ship, and they're trying to build another one that they go around the world, and especially to disadvantaged areas, a lot of places in Africa and Asia. And they take doctors that are either on a sabbatical or choose to spend their vacation working on the ship. And they do everything from preventative, like dental care and basic medical checkups, to life-altering surgery. And you, I think, came to one of my events and saw the videos. Mm-hmm. You'll have people that have growths on the side of their neck that they will remove. Things that if you were to basic care here in the United States, you probably would have never had an issue with. But because the care is lacking in some of these countries, things fester, and you know how that goes. And they do all of this free of charge, and it's a remarkable service. So we've started doing some things where we're raising money for them. And then we also work with a local charity called Impact a Hero. And the short version of what they do is they work with post 9/11 soldiers who have PTSD and have come back with other emotional and traumatic scars, and they work with them to rid them of that and help them step back into society. And it's incredible what they do, and I'm not doing a good job of describing it, but we've decided to partner with these two charities. And next month is what used to be called Plan a Cruise Month, and now it's called Choose Cruise. We've got a little flag here, but we're going to start raising money for them based on all the cruises we book in October. So it's another why do I get up is that reason.
Yeah, those are two amazing causes, and I think I even sent you a photo this year. My kids go to Sky Ranch up in Van, Texas, and we drive right by. I believe that's their headquarters, isn't it, in Van?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, great organizations.
And the stuff that they do is just spectacular. You see these before and afters, and you go, "That's just amazing."
And otherwise, they couldn't have it.
No, and you wouldn't. And then you think about just the organization it takes, number one, to be able to do all that stuff on a ship and get it to where they need to get it, and all the doctors. There's a lot that goes into it, and so I'm really excited to support them.
That's great. It's great, Chris. So I know we've been going through your company for several years now, and we do cruises. That's what my wife and I love to do. Our kids really like them now. In fact, we just got back on the Breeze, and the Breeze just left Galveston for the last time for a while. For a long, I don't know if it's come back. Is it?
No, as of right now, it's not coming back.
And so we enjoy cruises, and I know you don't just do cruises, do you?
No, don't just do cruises. We do probably 60 to 65% of our business is cruises. And the reason for that is that obviously we have 5 permanent ships in Galveston. We have 3 with Royal Caribbean. We have 2 with Royal Caribbean, or we will have 2 come this spring. We have Disney seasonally, so technically 6 ships. And then things are changing in Galveston. And if all goes well, in about 2 months, they'll break ground on the 3rd terminal, and we will probably have a couple of more ships after that. Good chance that we're going to have one of the large Royal Caribbean Oasis class ships here by 2020 or 2021. They haven't officially announced that yet, but I'm relatively confident enough to have done some pre-planning on that while we were in Florida last touring one of the ships. But it's very exciting down in Galveston. But about 65% of our business is that because of the ships being local. And for a family like yours, imagine if you had to pay airfare every time you wanted to cruise. That's another $2,000 right there. That's the cost of the cruise by itself.
Yeah. We're just talking about Hawaii, right? We love to go cruise there. It's the cost of flying there.
Oh, Hawaii, yeah, it's brutal.
We can be in Galveston parked and on the boat. Literally, this last time it took us an hour and 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But back to your original question, 65% roughly of our business is cruise. Probably another 20 to 25% is the Disney products, primarily Walt Disney World. We also work with a bunch of tour companies, primarily the Globus family of brands, and do tours, everything from guided tours down to on your own tours where you kind of set your own itinerary all over the world. And then we also do some all-inclusive stuff, mainly the Sandals and Beaches resorts throughout the Caribbean. So a little bit of everything, but cruise, I guess you could say, is our bread and butter.
So if somebody wants to travel, they should just call you and you'll figure out something to make it.
Absolutely. We'll do our best. Absolutely.
All right. What would you say is the one strength in your business, your own personal strength, that you can attribute to the success and growth of your business?
Oh, I think that one is easy, and it's being detail oriented. Travel is something where if you are not detail oriented, there are so many things that can go wrong. And we're all guilty of scanning emails and skimming texts and replies and things, and I'll be the first to admit I've done it on occasion. But there are so many small details that go into a successful vacation, as you probably know, just for cruises. Mm-hmm. That if you don't have a lot of attention to detail, things can go very far astray. And you brought up earlier the travel agent that I mentioned in a Facebook post that didn't even know what ships were in Galveston. Now, look, I deal with 50 different cruise lines and 300 to 400 ships. I've never even counted them, but a lot. And every once in a while, I have to double check, especially on a niche line, one that I don't do very often. I have to go back and go, okay, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. But because I do hundreds of Carnival cruises and Royal Caribbean cruises out of Galveston, I know the ships and know them very well. And I have a cheat sheet for Galveston that has all the sailing dates and everything. And to me, an agent that doesn't know what ship is in their own backyard and that cruise is what they sell kind of worries me just a little bit. And if that's a detail they don't know, what else are they not going to know? So I think that one advantage I have is detail oriented, making sure that we're not missing a step. And honestly, if you knew my process behind it, you might think I'm a little crazy as far as it goes, because I really will double and triple check things sometimes, but I would rather do that, or rather explain something you may already know than have it not be done and you go and get on the ship and suddenly there's an issue because of it. So I think detail oriented is huge. And I think if you can be that in any business, it helps.
Yeah, I remember a few years back, I think Logan might have been 3 or 4, and I'd make him a 7 or 8. We were about to go on a cruise out of Galveston, and we got a video message. I can't remember if it was Scott or you that had sent it. And it was,
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was actually the cruise director for the ship that we were about to go on.
Mike Pack is his name. Yeah.
Yes. And I think y'all had met up with him at maybe Cruise 360 or something. Exactly. And had shot that video and passed it along. And it was a personalized message from the cruise director telling Logan and Emma, we look forward to seeing you and having so much fun. Just those little detail-oriented things, I think, is what really sets you all apart.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And it's funny, I came across that video the other day. Mike was my cruise director on the Breeze last Thanksgiving. And just to follow up on him, if you saw him on the video, he got the honor of being the first cruise director on the brand new Horizon, which is their newest ship. And
Oh,
what an honor that is, out of all the Carnival cruise directors, to be selected to bring a new ship out. But he's fabulous. And we actually did see him at a convention and said, hold on, we need you for a minute. And sure enough, he was happy to oblige.
yeah. We appreciated that. What is so we focused on your strength. What is your pet peeve in the industry?
Uh,
We only we have a limited amount of time.
yeah, that's a loaded question. Honestly, I think that it could be one of two things. And I think that the first one that comes to mind is kind of piggybacking on what we were talking about earlier, not knowing your stuff, not knowing your product, and not knowing what you're selling the client. Now, well, and I guess that even piggybacks on into an easier answer, which is laziness. Look, we all have these devices, and they call them smartphones, but honestly, and you and I have had this discussion, I think they make you dumber sometimes. And what's sad about it is we have Google and we have Wikipedia, and granted, not everything on there is true, but if you have a little common sense and a little bit of time, you can find answers to things. And so really there should be no excuse. And then if you can't, by the way, they make phone calls. You can call the supplier and say, hey, I have a question that my client's curious about. I always believe that the weakest agent in any business, so in the real estate business and in the travel business, is the weakest link in the chain and hurts us all. So if you had come to another travel agent before me and had a terrible experience, not only do I have to try to win you back as a business, but I've got to try to convince you that using us is good. And so if an agent doesn't do a good job, and granted, mistakes happen, it's how you fix them, but if they don't even know what ship is in Galveston, they're selling you a ship that you're not even going to be able to get on. And that, I think, would be my biggest pet peeve, is not knowing your product and being lazy and not researching.
Yeah, and I see that in a lot of industries. It's just the lack of, or it's really a mindset, Chris. It's a mindset of I know it all, and not going out and continuing to pour into education. And it's a time investment, it's a money investment. Yet in the end, it's going to make you more knowledgeable, which gives your customers and clients the better experience, which gets them to keep coming back. You're not having to go out and find a new customer every time because they use you and they don't like you. They keep coming back and you get that repeat business.
Yeah, you talk about learning stuff. The old adage, you learn something new every day, and I certainly try to. But with my business, like I mentioned earlier, I've got 50 cruise lines by themselves, and they all have training programs, and they all are building new ships constantly and changing itineraries. And we're at the time of the year right now where they're going to start announcing their 2020 and 2021 stuff. So it's constantly a battle to keep up and learn. And like I said, you're not going to know everything, but I really believe that if you tell a customer, I don't know, but I can find out for you. I've never had somebody say, well, why didn't you know that? They're always appreciative that you were willing to take the time and find out the answer. And also, I think kind of subliminally, they're appreciative that you didn't just say, oh, it's this, and just brush them off. But I spend any downtime I have, like today, if I hadn't been doing this and this hour was free, I might have gone and done a module update on a cruise line just to keep in the know about something, or maybe with Disney or one of my land partners. But you always have got to be learning. And I can only imagine in real estate. I mean, the laws are changing constantly. And if you don't know the right thing, that's a big mistake to make with a big price tag.
Yeah, and I'm coaching mortgage brokers and insurance agencies, and all of them. At the end of the day, they're all the same in the way that the businesses operate. And it's a sales business, and you have to go sharpen your skills. You can't just rest on your laurels, because things are constantly ever changing. And if you're not changing, you're not growing, is what I tell my coaching clients. So
absolutely.
If I wanted to become a travel agent, I'm not going to, Chris, but if I wanted to, or somebody out here that's watching today, we got several people on. We got Stephanie Fallon, my uncle Aaron is on.
Hi, Uncle Aaron.
Jason Pinard, he's up there on the East Coast. Troy Garner, JJ Waddick, she's over at JLA.
JJ Watt is on here?
Waddick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not JJ Watt, unfortunately. I've always wanted to have lunch with him. Jeanette Pipkins, She's a mortgage broker that I coach. She's on here today. So if any one of these individuals wanted to become a travel agent, where do they even start?
You know, we started by just kind of, to be honest with you, learning as we went along, and we intentionally, that August day when we decided to do this, spent the next 4 months learning things before we ever opened our doors. There are some online training courses. Most of the suppliers offer training courses. We went to Cruise 360 the first year because it is the leading training in the cruise industry, but a lot of that can apply to other travel areas. CLIA, who is the company, Cruise Lines International Association, that puts on that convention, they're working with colleges and universities right now to try to start a travel agent curriculum. We'll see if that takes off or not. But really having a sales background of any kind is helpful. Having the ability to be flexible in your time, and I'm sure real estate is similar to that because you're doing, evening and weekend showings and things. But really what I would tell people is why are you getting into the business? First of all, if you're getting into it for the reasons that I mentioned, then absolutely go for it. If you're getting into it to travel for free, which is what some people do, that's not going to happen. I've done it for a decade, and I've been on a couple of freebies, and they do FAMs every once in a while. But generally speaking, that's not what it's about. The other thing is I decide where you want to focus. Do you want to sell cruises? Do you want to sell Disney? Do you want to sell a little bit of everything like we do? I have certain agent friends that all they do is Disney, and I have other friends that all they do is cruises, and some of them drill it down and say, I only do Carnival, or I only do Princess, or I only do Disney, or whatever it may be. So those are the things that I would ask yourself. And then as far as the education goes, it's tricky to find, but that's why I think you have to be detail oriented and kind of be good at researching, because you're going to have to figure some of it out yourself. And there's a kind of a catch-22 in the business. In order to book travel, you have to have a code number, or what's called a CLIA or an IATA number. Sure. You can't get those on your own without having sales, and you can't get sales without having those. And there are some companies out there that will let you be an affiliate agent of theirs, basically consortiums and other things. But it's tricky to get into the industry. The learning curve is pretty sharp. Okay.
And if you were to impart a piece of advice today, and it's anything, it could be about business, it could be about life, just something in general, maybe it's something that you've been brought up to know. What's one thing that you'd like to leave with the people that may be watching this today?
I think it was at the end of I talked about a Facebook post where I praised a couple of great employees I met over the weekend. And one of the things I put at the end of that is something that I believe for a long time, and I think is really important in any business. And I used to call it my burger flipper theory, but the idea behind it is love what you do no matter what it is. And even if you're at the bottom rung of the ladder right now, love what you do and work as hard as you can at it. And the reason that I say that is, the burger flipper analogy, as I called it, is if you're a burger flipper and you're starting out and that's your first job, you can be mad that you're in the kitchen and not the manager and not everything else, and your attitude's going to show it, and you're not going to do well probably, and probably not get promoted. But if you're the best burger flipper out there, guess what? Then you go to assistant manager, and then to manager, and then you're district manager. And next thing you know, you're running the whole company. And it doesn't always work like that, but you're not going to get there with the negative attitude and this is just terrible. So no matter what you're doing, always be the best at it and always love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, go into something else. And that's kind of how I got to where I am right now. The radio business changed a lot, and I was looking for a way to get out, and I found one, and I haven't looked back, and it's been an absolute blessing. I've met people like you, Jeremy, and your family, and a lot of our customers, as you have become friends. You can't ask more from a business. Support your family. You meet a lot of great people. I couldn't ask for better.
Yeah. Burger flipper, I love it. I'm gonna add that to my book.
Well, with me, it all comes back to cheeseburgers in the end. So if you don't know me already, the bottom line is, if it's cheeseburgers, then that's where it's at.
It's got to be a cheeseburger in paradise.
Well, yeah, you get me on those Carnival ships, I can't get away from Guy's Burger Joint,
Yeah, I probably visited about 6 times the last time I went. So
that's all? You slacker.
No. Well, they didn't open for breakfast, so I couldn't have them today.
If they did, you and I would both be there, that's for sure.
All right. Well, Chris, I appreciate you taking the time today. And if somebody were to want to schedule travel with you, how would they reach out?
Okay. The easiest way to find me is our website, premiercustomtravel.com, and it's PREMIER customtravel.com. Phone number's on the poster behind me. It's 281-301-5818. And if somebody's interested in working with me, I would love to have their business. You know, one of the things that we get asked a lot is, why should I use a travel agent? And the short, simple answer is, why wouldn't you? Because we don't charge you a penny more than going directly to whoever you're going to book it with. Sometimes we actually get you better deals. But then you, number one, support a local business. Number two, you work with the same person every time instead of calling a phone number, waiting on hold 20 minutes to get somebody who may or may not know you. We get all the same benefits you would get going direct. You don't lose a thing, but you get the detail-oriented me and maybe a cheeseburger too along the way. But you know, a lot of people think that we charge a lot of fees or that they're going to lose the ability to access their reservation or do any number of things, and none of that's true. Travel agents are actually booming right now, and I'm very, very happy to say that.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been a pleasure over the years. We've probably taken, I think we're around 12 to 14 cruises, and a majority of those we've booked through you.
Yep.
I think every one of them, probably the last 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think since we went into business, you've been with us consistently.
And it's been a smooth process every single time. We've never had any errors. I mean, when you're talking about a lot of things could go wrong, you know, I think about when we flew into, what was it? We left out of Seattle for Alaska, you know, just making sure that our flights got there, we got to the right place to get on the right bus that got there at the right time to get us on the ship, and, you know, and back to the airport. And we didn't lose any of our luggage. We didn't have any hiccups, and it just all went really smooth, and we could really spend our time enjoying the trip and not worrying about all the little details, the minutia that, you know, where things could possibly go wrong. It's not to say that it's 100% perfect every time, right?
Yeah.
It's the majority of the time. And I appreciate the attention to detail that y'all have. And I'm anybody that's watching, I see Christina Clemens jumped on, Tom O'Neill's watching, Maria Macias, Tanette, thanks for the clap. That did. Thank you.
As long as it's not a whole bunch of little angry faces popping up, I guess we're good, right?
We're good. But you know, I want to refer Chris personally and say that if you're looking to travel, that you should reach out to him, and he'll do a great job. And Scott, I know his partner. I've known Scott for many years as well. Both of them are going to take great care of you. And you know, I know Scott's wife's part of the team. You know, Buttons. We haven't seen Buttons yet.
Oh, Buttons is right here. I could try to get him to pop up. I work from home, and I have a cat, and he will normally be pretty chatty. Today he's been really good, so I don't know what to attribute that to.
Yeah. So Buttons is a mascot. If you go to the website, you'll see Buttons there, and Buttons pretty much runs the show.
He does.
Will book cruises for you as well.
He has a Twitter also. You can follow him at PCT Office Kitty.
And so I thank you again for taking the time. It means a lot. And
my pleasure.
And I think we all learned something today, and that we can just take one piece of knowledge, implement it in our business, and do better. And that's the whole idea, is to be able to do better each day. So thank you again, Chris.
Thank you, Jeremy. Pleasure to be here.
Have a great day.
You too.